gives you so many avenues to get good overnight. Tyler Linderbaum, great center from Baltimore, is now a Raider. My favorite signing of free agency, A++. Get to that in a second. I absolutely love that signing. Jalen Naylor, the receiver and number 3 receiver from Minnesota. Not much of a paycheck, way underrated signing. Eric Stokes, re-signing him at corner, outstanding. Oh, ideally, in the NFL, you'd love to have great ownership at the top. But the Bears and the Raiders don't. But both have really, really ascending general managers. John Spytek for the Raiders, to get 2 firsts for Max Crosby in a year in which he was banged up is a haul. And remember, that Ravens pick to the Raiders, that pick's 14th. So they have the number 1 pick, Fernando Mendoza, and the 14th pick. So they're going to get 2 absolute, if they want, day 1 starters. Not to mention, and this is what's great. Pathetic to playoffs in the NFL is a regular occurrence. 4 of the last 7 Super Bowls, 4 of the last 7 featured a team that didn't even make the playoffs the previous year. Last year, Seattle and New England, 2 for 2. No other league can do that. If you are lousy perpetually in this league, like Cleveland and the Jets, it is all self-inflicted. Like the $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, and all of you knew the minute the ink was dry, that was a terrible deal. Have you also noticed what the Raiders are doing? And this is not a coincidence. They are signing players from winning organizations like the Eagles and the Ravens and the Bills and the Packers. They're taking people from winning cultures. Okay. Now, there is some dumb money in free agency. You can kind of see it, and it's obvious. I think Zion Johnson from Cleveland getting $50 million. Chargers just let him walk. That was the worst center guard experience in the entire league. And gosh, what a shock. Cleveland overpaid for it. So
I don't want to discuss Cleveland whatsoever. My focus is entirely on the Las Vegas Raiders. This is precisely the point I've been attempting to make all along. The Las Vegas Raiders are unequivocally dominating the offseason narrative so far. It brings me genuine satisfaction to see Colin Cowherd finally coming around to this realization. He's clearly thinking sharply and seeing the situation for what it truly is. The Las Vegas Raiders are absolutely excelling in every facet of their operations. They are crushing it on all fronts without exception. I have another piece of content scheduled for release tomorrow. My initial plan was to post it today, but then I came across this particular clip. I had assumed Colin was taking another day off, but I just discovered that he is, in fact, active. So I thought to myself, all right, let me simply rearrange my priorities here. Interestingly, he's discussing Jalen Naylor, which aligns perfectly with what I've been emphasizing as well. That signing represents a quietly brilliant acquisition, along with Nico Dean. Once again, consider the pattern. You're acquiring talent from winning organizations, individuals who have been immersed in high-caliber coaching environments. Honestly, it transcends merely being part of winning franchises. The fundamental question is whether these players have experienced coaching staffs that genuinely comprehend their craft. Have they been exposed to authentic, superior cultural standards within the NFL? Do they possess the intrinsic knowledge of how to conduct themselves from day one upon joining the Las Vegas Raiders? This is the critical distinction. Consequently, the organization is unquestionably thriving in this regard. Colin's argument, as he presents it here, is essentially, observe how numerous teams that failed to qualify for the playoffs have subsequently advanced to the Super Bowl. Extrapolating from that, he's suggesting the Las Vegas Raiders are on a trajectory toward the Super Bowl. Now, let me be perfectly clear. I'm not about to emulate Nick Wright's proclamation when the Chicago Bears drafted Caleb Williams, where he boldly asserted that Williams would be an MVP candidate and lead his team to the Super Bowl during his rookie campaign. I'm certainly not prepared to go that far. However, I will state unequivocally that Nick harbored immense belief in that scenario for the Chicago Bears. Yet, when you objectively examine that roster and that coaching staff, they weren't even remotely comparable to what the Las Vegas Raiders currently possess. There's absolutely no comparison. The support system surrounding your rookie quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, is legitimate and comprehensive. I apologize for the repetition, as I voiced this sentiment multiple times, but it's simply ingrained in my consciousness. It's permanently etched into my very being at this moment. I'll reiterate it once more, with apologies for the redundancy. As long as Clint Kubiak and Mendoza achieve a baseline level of competence, simply avoiding disastrous performance, this Las Vegas Raiders team possesses the potential to be outstanding, to be genuinely formidable. They could be authentically great. I'm deliberately attempting to formulate realistic benchmarks and establish plausible floor outcomes for this team. I want to avoid hyperbolic comparisons, like suggesting they could emulate the Seattle Seahawks' Super Bowl victory. While Nayang Day pronouncements sound appealing and generate excitement, driving clicks and views, my aim is to be more measured, more strategic in my analysis. If I genuinely hold a belief, I want it to carry substantive weight rather than being uttered merely for rhetorical effect. This is precisely why I consistently utilize the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott as a comparative baseline once he assumed the starting role. That represented a tangible floor. However, consider this scenario, which I haven't yet articulated publicly. If Clint Kubiak and Mendoza transcend mere competence and actually achieve greatness, becoming exactly what you hope they can be, then you're discussing a fundamentally different trajectory. You're essentially looking at a franchise that could evolve into something akin to the Buffalo Bills, the San Francisco 49ers, or the Los Angeles Rams. These are organizations that consistently, year after year, project an aura of perennial contention. The 49ers have undergone various iterations of this model, but the underlying principle remains constant. You develop that unmistakable feeling that this team absolutely, positively has the capability to win a Super Bowl. This isn't a squad opponents eagerly anticipate facing in the postseason. There's no sentiment like, oh, I hope we draw the Rams in the playoffs, or give us Josh Allen and the Bills on the road in Buffalo, sign us up. Nobody harbors that enthusiasm. Nobody welcomes that challenge. That's the status you aspire to achieve. From that foundation, the remaining questions revolve around how special you can become. What additional moves do you execute during free agency? This progression is how you ultimately transcend the competition and transform into a franchise like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs. It's about making that subsequent strategic move that elevates you beyond the competition, enabling high-level execution during the most critical moments. That's the pathway to reaching that next echelon of performance. Therefore, the current situation is simply fantastic. Seemingly, every decision the organization makes feels impeccably timed and perfectly conceived. It genuinely, authentically does. I'll continue emphasizing this point persistently. The timing of Suoyu Jishie moves is equally impeccable. Let me share an observation with you. This division contains multiple teams I frequently discuss. I derive considerable enjoyment from analyzing the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. However, the Chiefs possess an exceptionally distinctive fan base. I'll simply leave it at that. I can observe the reactions because I have numerous subscribers affiliated with each of these franchises. There's substantial overlap. Fans from different teams regularly engage with content across various channels. I'll tell you candidly that I don't observe many Chargers or Broncos supporters dismissively criticizing the Raiders' activities. However, I definitely notice comments regarding the Chiefs. Those remarks are readily apparent. What's notably absent are comments directed toward the Raiders from, say, Kansas City fans or Denver enthusiasts expressing skepticism like, well, this won't work, or good luck with that. That absence is profoundly telling. It reveals something significant about how the Raiders' moves are perceived within the division. The silence itself constitutes meaningful feedback. To summarize, I wear an irrepressible smile whenever contemplating Las Vegas. I'm genuinely energized and enthusiastic about maintaining this dialogue as events continue to unfold. I believe there's an extensive runway ahead, providing ample material for discussion week after week. It's genuinely gratifying when an organization actively makes strategic moves. The off-season period, extending through the draft and beyond, is typically sustained by compelling quarterback narratives, prospects being selected and determining their destinations. The 2024 offseason possessed tremendous momentum precisely because of Bo Nix landing with the Broncos, Jaden Daniels joining the Commanders, and Caleb Williams going to Chicago. That energy was palpable, generating discussion across all those franchises, The atmosphere was electric, absolutely phenomenal. The subsequent year simply couldn't replicate that dynamic. That's precisely why commentators desperately attempted to amplify Shedeur Sanders' significance. There was genuine concern about the absence of a dominant narrative. Drafting, for instance, an offensive tackle in the first round simply doesn't generate comparable excitement. People aren't inherently enthusiastic about such selections. And while I personally found Cameron Ward intriguing, his destination being Tennessee presents challenges. The Titans haven't demonstrated substantial momentum, leaving observers uncertain about how to contextualize that situation. Nevertheless, there's demonstrably more energy surrounding the Titans this season than previously. Once again, the Raiders are orchestrating a remarkable transformation. You now possess not only an exceptional quarterback, one I genuinely believe in, but you've executed the appropriate coaching hire while making astute off-season moves. It's an accumulation of positive developments building upon one another. Imagine if Caleb Williams, upon being drafted by the Bears, had found Ben Johnson already installed as head coach, with offensive line reinforcements already secured. Imagine if foundational elements were already established. The reaction would have been overwhelmingly positive. As I frequently observe, this creates a compounding effect, like achieving a double bounce on a trampoline. That's precisely the sensation surrounding the Las Vegas Raiders at this moment. They're executing every correct decision precisely when you'd be fervently hoping for competent management. They're doing everything necessary, and they're doing it effectively. Furthermore, they hold the #1 overall selection, followed by another pick approximately 12 or 13 slots later. What more could anyone reasonably request? It's not as though they're making soyeux moves while harboring unresolved questions, like an octogenarian coach or an offensive coordinator, whose alertness might be questionable. Those concerns simply don't exist here. You can't express reservations about coaching while feeling confident about the roster. You're systematically addressing every conceivable category. Which remaining boxes require attention? Realistically speaking, identify one additional box you could legitimately expect them to check at this juncture. Seriously, requesting anything further would simply reflect greed. However, this is Las Vegas. Occasionally, greed proves necessary, though it can also be destructive. These represent my personal reflections, and I'm genuinely interested in hearing your perspectives. What are your thoughts regarding the Las Vegas Raiders and their strategic decisions? I'm pleased to observe Colin Cowherd endorsing their direction. Please share your opinions. I personally review every comment. Whether you agree or disagree with my assessment, let's generate meaningful discussion. Let's engage in spirited debate, but ultimately, let's ensure we're enjoying ourselves throughout the process. And please consider subscribing to the channel. We're cultivating an exceptional community here, and I genuinely appreciate your participation. My objective is to construct something we all feel authentically connected to, something we're genuinely excited to be part of. I believe we're making substantial progress toward that goal. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up, as it significantly enhances visibility and algorithmic reach. Thank you sincerely.